It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for June 14th, 2023 for the next hour or so. Let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Microsoft is working on a new game with People Can Fly. A judge approves a restraining order on Microsoft's ATVI deal, and the Embracer Group is on shaky ground. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jesse Norris. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. What a fun weekend. I watched all the stuff you guys did down at the Summer Game Fest and whatnot. And all your, that was good. You guys killed it. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It's kind of nonstop. We were doing meetings during the day. We were then doing the night shows at night, and it really was nonstop, but it was really worth it. Boy, it was, people were mentioning, like, games coverage people, games media people don't really get their thing very often where it's like about them. And I'm like, that's what those night shows kind of are for a big part of it. Like, we love having everybody on it, whoever wants to come hang out. I really like talking to developers. Of course, I like talking to Phil and Matt Booty and stuff like that. That was fantastic. But honestly, it's a lot of fun just catching up with other people who do this job. That's pretty cool as well.
It looked like it. I'm gonna try and get there next year. We'll see. You
should definitely come out. It was a really good time. Everyone was very nice about it, and that's like obviously people who were there in the green room were very kind about coming out to our studio, which was a little bit out of the way. And then everybody online commenting was just so kind. It was really, really nice to see the reaction to it.
It's odd for people online to be kind, so you killed it when that's the case.
Yeah, I was like, I was always kind of doing it with everyone in mind. Like, I liked watching these things, so I'd like to keep it going. And that was the sentiment of, I really like these things. I'm glad that they still exist. So it was really, really nice to do it. And yeah, it was interesting to see such a fun reaction of people be like, thank God this still happens. It made us want to do it again next year. And we're also kind of talking about other ways to not do the same thing, but like replicate that sort of energy in other places. And it was, I'll say that we definitely have some momentum going with it now. There's definitely people who had their eyes opened a little bit, seeing, hey, this is what Giant Bomb can do. So we'll see if we can turn that into more in the future. But no promises. The only promise I'll make is I will try to do this again next year for sure. So that'll be fun. And, Summer Game Fest is going to happen again. We'll talk about that in one of the news stories here in a second. But first, Jesse, really, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. We did a lot of streaming. I sent you a picture of the beautiful NFT-ridden cyber suite we rented out in cyberspace.
It's pretty good stuff. I like that.
Stuff. Yeah, it's really fun to make stupid scenes in OBS where you just take a bit and everyone. Well, I have a green screen. The other guys had a green screen. Nick, our friend and your boyfriend, just had a green blanket, so I had to try and make that work. Yeah, it was good. It was a very fun week. Summer Game Fest had some really good stuff, even if the flow of the show is going to be what it is, because Jeff gets what he gets, which is overall, I think you look at it, there's some really good announcements. There's just not great flow. Ubisoft really went for, well, I think we'll probably get into it maybe, but they were very E3 of old-ish feeling. That was weirdly nostalgic for me, just seeing all the oddness in their presentation.
Yeah, it being a very weird live production, and doing a live show like in a theater with people sitting there watching a stage presentation, cutting to the audience, people dancing around. It was fun that they even try to pull it off, even if it was mostly bad. It's bad in a harmless way.
It was bad in a way I was okay with, because it felt so different. Everything else, like Microsoft, super polished, ready ahead of time, really fast paced, and then for both of their shows, and then Summer Game Fest being the big theater thing that Jeff has done, having something that felt weird again was kind of cool, even if as an actual show they had good stuff, which was nice, but the actual flow of that show was real weird.
And then Mike Minotti standing up to end the show. The first thing everyone saw was just an audience clapping, and then Mike Minotti standing up looking unimpressed, which is funny because he's one of the people that I think was most impressed by that show. I think he had a really good time watching it. And
he was replying to Dan on Twitter. He's like, well, my butt fell asleep. And Dan's like, butts can fall asleep?
Yeah, Dan doesn't know anything.
Doesn't a super butt.
Exactly. Whoa, I got my audio just got stop. I think we're good. We good? We still sound good? I think we sound good. That Ubisoft show I thought was like, looking back on it, that was pretty well done. In terms of the games. I'm like, all those things I'm pretty interested in. Even the Far Cry but blue people, which is what Avatar is. I'm like, that's fine. What am I expecting from a film like licensed game?
Massive is one of the best out. I loved
Yeah.
I loved playing the Division 1 and 2. Story-wise, they weren't very good. But so that's what I'm kind of curious with, how have they improved their story chops, because I know it's going to look incredible and it's going to play great. But now I'm really curious, are they going to finally have a good story team? I guess the setting being, you know, fascist government going in and killing a bunch of their citizens isn't, well, Avatar is kind of like that.
I mean well, that's
Yeah.
definitely what Avatar is. I think Far Cry is not like that. That's the problem. It's like
But the Division was.
Yeah. Far Cry is definitely a thanks, Jan. Jan's getting the titles and everything. Far Cry is a game about expanding your like little mini personal empire. And like, this is a game about that ostensibly is a game, and it's based on a movie that is about fighting against colonialism and only taking what you need. And it was fun to see in the demonstration that they gave, and I think they talked about this in the stage presentation as well, where it's like, yeah, we're going to have you like collect resources because this is one of those games. But if you wait and you don't take everything you need and you wait till things are like just right and you take the one that is just right for you and you leave everything else, that's like the optimal way to play the game. And that way you can be in balance with nature. And like, they're at least considering the ideas of
that's the James Cameron side of things. He probably yelled at them.
Right. Yeah. They're trying to avoid the ludonarrative dissonance, right? They're keeping that in mind. I don't know if that's actually going to be something that we're going to be happy with by the time it's done. I'm also at a point where it's a movie license game. If it's kind of fun and gives me a chance to experience that world a little bit, I'll probably be fine with it. There's a lot of really great games coming out this year. It's okay if you put out a good game. Like, it's fine.
And they're one of the only ones that said, we're going to avoid the August, September, November, or October glut.
Yeah.
And go into December. It's like, oh, thank God.
Really, really good thinking from them right out of the gate there. All right, let's get into this mess. But before we do, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Polish studio People Can Fly is to create a AAA game for Microsoft. This comes from, here we go, Wojciech Gruszczyk at ppe.poland.pl. People Can Fly is establishing a deal with Microsoft to produce a new AAA game. The project, codenamed Maverick, is a follow-up to the company's Outriders, not as in like a follow-up in gameplay style or anything like that. It's their next game after that it worked with on Square Enix. The new project will have a development budget between $30 to $50 million, so not some massive game, although they are calling it AAA. This is a work-for-hire project, which means that Microsoft will own the IP. Perhaps it already does. That's where we're going to get right into the speculation. Is this a Gears developed by Poles, is what ppe.pl asks. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, our friend Nick had said he way too early revealed a Gears collection, like 1, 2, and 3, being remade in Unreal Engine 5 so that they could have it on PC and everything.
Yeah.
This sounds like it. Maybe it's that. Who knows?
It's possible.
Because they did Gears Judgment, which was kind of weird, but still very fun in its own way. I like that game. It's like a solid 7-ish because it's just very fun and dumb.
Yes.
And they've got good technical chops. So taking something that's already made and redoing it seems like a good project for them to make some money after they didn't get paid for Outriders.
Exactly. And $30 to $50 million is not a ton, but it says AAA. So I mean, how do you square that thing? I think you probably do it by a collection or remaster of some sorts. That makes a lot of sense. I think they could even do a like big budget remake and have it be in the $30 to $50 million range. So if it is if they want to start with like a Gears of War 1 full-on remake, they could do it probably in that budget. I'm mostly speaking out of my ass. I don't really know, but that sounds right.
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
all getting.
That's more likely, right? Yeah, that's more likely that they'll just actually do all of them at once. Because if you're doing the work to upgrade those games and not necessarily remaking them from the ground up, just do 1, 2, and 3 all at once. That makes sense.
One is on PC, but it's like a crappier port. 2 and 3 aren't. So with their initiative now of PC is just a platform, as Phil said to you guys. Like, they want all their stuff there.
And it's it's in line if you look at like the circumstantial evidence of where Gears is at right now. And I'm going to say Gears instead of Gears of War because I know it makes Mike Minotti really mad. So Gears, Coalition is years away from probably putting out the next one. They were taking their time with Unreal Engine 5 of getting up to speed with it. They were going to put out other games that weren't Gears first, smaller projects, fun experimental projects. They dropped those in favor of getting back to work on Gears 6, right? That would be Gears 6. And that's okay. Yeah, fine. That's great. I'm glad they're doing that, but that's going to take a lot of time still. We are probably still several years from even like really seeing it, like maybe 1 or 2 years from seeing it, then like 4 or 5 years from it actually coming out. Possibly. I don't know for sure, but possibly.
Oh, in that, that's getting reported on Twitter now.
Yeah, just possibly. I don't know. I'm just like speculating here, but everyone heard Matt Booty on our show where he's like, these games can take 4, 5, 6 years, and they just kind of got to work on this thing in the last year or two.
You think Gears 6 would just be Gear 6?
Yes, each time they should remove like another like letter.
Definitely would be, because he was the one who pushed for Gears. I do wonder, he's gone. Will they go back to Gears of War?
Yeah, maybe we'll see. I don't know. I think Gears 6 is fine. But you're right. Brad Ferguson's gone, so we'll see. But yeah, I think that this is a good way to sort of keep Gears in the consciousness of everybody and kind of keep it relevant. And you do that with like a really good looking remake that could work. Remake slash
maybe Unreal
upgrade.
Engine 5 will actually be real by then.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Being at Summer Game Fest, I saw a number of games running on Unreal Engine 5 that looked really good, really solid, and are coming out later this year.
And I joke, I'm actually reviewing something that's on.
Yes, exactly. Like we are. I think we're kind of getting there, and it does seem pretty nice because these games are looking really solid overall. I'm overall pretty happy.
They should actually finally be good at open world games, and then you don't get performance like you have in Jedi Survivor.
Exactly. Yes, that engine will now be built with like the last generation of games actually
in mind.
The
Creation Engine 1.0
and now
many areas.
And then going forward, like there will be some new revelation in games, and Unreal Engine 5 will be bad at that, and developers will have to struggle with that for an entire generation. But we're not there. So enjoy your open world games for the next little bit. All right, moving on. Judge grants restraining order temporarily preventing Microsoft from buying Activision. This comes from Haley Williams at GameSpot. A federal court has issued a restraining order that will prevent Microsoft from completing its acquisition of Activision Blizzard until it can consider a preliminary injunction requested by the Federal Trade Commission, The Verge reports. While the FTC is attempting to stop Microsoft from finalizing its deal before the deadline of July 18th, Microsoft stated that the injunction was a good thing as it would speed up the legal process. The restraining order means Microsoft can't complete its acquisition of Activision until after midnight Pacific time on the 5th business day after the court rules on the FTC's request for a preliminary injunction. If the injunction is also granted at that time, it means that the FTC will be able to argue its case in court before Microsoft is able to complete its deal. A number of dates has been set under the current court order. Microsoft and Activision need to submit their response to the injunction by June 16th. The FTC needs to reply to that by June 20th. And a hearing on the preliminary injunction will take place on June 22nd and 23rd. With the restraining order in place, this means Microsoft will be unlikely to complete its deal in June. Microsoft isn't worried about the injunction, however, with company President Brad Smith saying, "We welcome the opportunity to present our case in federal court. We believe accelerating the legal process in the U.S. will ultimately bring more choice and competition to the market." So, to break that down for people who might be remembering, didn't the FTC already sue? Yes, they did. They sued a while back, but they did not have this injunction. What this injunction will do is basically move everything forward so that if this gets basically thrown out by a judge once Microsoft is able to appeal the injunction, that might seal it right there, and Microsoft might be able to move on from any FTC blockades going forward. At least that's my understanding. How do you understand it, Jesse?
So from the way it seems, Microsoft might have or allegedly could have told the FTC they were going to close this Friday.
Right.
And the FTC said, okay, we need to get this squashed by Thursday because they told us they're going to do it Friday. Why would Microsoft do that when they're still going through it with the CMA? It's because the CMA thing seems to be going really well in their favor.
Yeah.
And they want to get this done before that July 18th date where they have to then do a ton of work to, get a new agreement.
Yes.
So doing all this gets the FTC to, they bit the bullet and they did what Microsoft was hoping, and they went for this for a restraining order to try and get their injunction. And if they don't get it after the hearing, then there's a really good chance Microsoft does just say we're closing now.
Yep.
And because they feel really confident, they know in the U.S. they're pretty well off, and things are going pretty darn good in the UK.
Right. So, like, there was already going to be a court case between the FTC and Microsoft about this acquisition much later this year.
Yeah.
Yes. And what this will effectively do, at least in Microsoft's theory here, is that this will negate the need for any of that stuff to really to have an effect on the actual closing of the deal. So it will answer a lot of the legal questions in Microsoft's opinion, and they will feel good about closing. And probably will not, and the FTC will no longer have any standing at that point.
Yeah, because
as long as everything works out in their order with this injunction.
Because it definitely seems like the FTC and the CMA had been kind of working a little bit in lockstep when they
clearly,
might not,
at least
not have been supposed to after they had been.
Yeah,
we're guessing. Who knows? They only had they were talking back and forth a bunch. Who knows? But the moment. Then that's why the FTC didn't go for this initially, because it would have been very hard to get. And if they didn't get it, chances are Microsoft would have already closed like by now after getting the EC approval and all that. So now that they're kind of feeling back in a corner and they had the CMA with them before, now they were probably hoping the EC was going to do things. Now they're like, well, crap, we really want to stop this. So this is our only chance. We got to take a Hail Mary.
Yep. And that seems like this is what this is, the Hail Mary. And, anything could still happen. But Microsoft
it is
feeling
the same
confident.
Judge who threw out the gamer lawsuit.
Right.
Funnily enough.
So we'll stick with us on this story for a little bit longer. It seems like there's going to be a few more days of headlines.
It's close. It's feeling close.
But it does seem like it's actually pretty close this time.
Couple weeks.
Yep. Couple more weeks, everybody. And we'll see if we can get this finally behind us. All right, moving on. Embracer Group announces plans to close some studios and cancel some game projects. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. Embracer Group has announced a new restructuring program which will see some game studios closed and some projects canceled. Shares in the company nosedived by over 40% last month after the Swedish company said a major $2 billion partnership had fallen through unexpectedly and wouldn't be going ahead as planned, leading to a slashing of its earnings forecast. Of course, they never should have been relying on that in the first place, which is really why it went down by 40%, because investors knew this was an excuse.
House of Cards.
Exactly. Now, in an open letter posted on the company's website, Group CEO Lars Wingefors had stated that the newly announced restructuring program will be designed to make Embracer leaner, stronger, and a more focused, self-sufficient company. Restructuring program, obviously a euphemism for a lot of layoffs, a lot of spending cuts, things along those lines. Here's more of what Wingefors said. During the past years, Embracer invested significantly both in acquisitions and into a strategy of accelerated organic growth. We have acquired some of the world's leading entertainment IP, and we have invested into one of the largest pipelines of games across the industry. The program presented today will transform us from our current heavy investment mode to a highly cash flow generative business this year. This new restructuring will result in job losses. Embracer currently engages close to 70,000 employees. I don't know why engages is the word. Employs 17,000 people, and while the number will be lower by the end of the year, it is too early to give an exact forecast on this. It is painful to see talented team members leave. Our people are what make us the very fabric of Embracer. I understand and respect that many of you will be worried about your own position, and I don't have all the answers to all the questions. I want to be clear that the decisions about this program are not taken lightly. He goes on like this for a while, but he does talk about how they do have a pretty exciting pipeline of games, which is like one of the things that people might care about. I'm proud of what we have built over the past years, and we should acknowledge that we are heading into a solid year with amazing releases such as Remnant 2, Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, Payday 3, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, Arizona Sunshine 2, Alone in the Dark, Homeworld 3, and many, many others. And I'm focusing on that because you would think, I think many of those games are very exciting, Jesse. I played Remnant 2. It is awesome.
Everyone I know that's played it is waiting.
It rules. It is so much fun. It is like a top tier game that I'm looking forward to. Space Marine 2 looks pretty good. Payday 3 looks very good. A game that should make a ton of money. If this is your lineup of games, you should not be in a bad situation. You should be like, we got a bunch of stuff coming. We're good to go. He talks about Dead Island 2 being way more successful than they were expecting. That should be good enough. But the way they have their company set up was never to be like, we're going to make enough games and pay for all this. It was clearly to some other end that either never materialized or they never really even knew what it was going to be in the first place because they just kept expanding, acquiring more. Maybe the
inflation
end goal
was low, and then that debt flies up now.
Exactly right. Money was cheap for a really long time, and then the global economic situation changed from underneath them. But that was always a possibility. And so, what was their exit strategy? And looking at this, it's hard to say it was ever make good video games because they got a lot of good video games coming out, and they're in this position. I kind of don't know what to expect from this company going forward. I do think they probably will try to get through all of these games and hopefully get to a position where just making those games will be enough. But it seems like that's going to be a really painful process. What do you think?
I think it's going to be extremely painful, but not for the executives who will just still make a bunch of money and have their jobs. They'll just cut out all the little people whenever they need to say, oh, we're sad to see them leave when you're the one literally kicking them out the door. And it'll just be the shit rolls downhill a bunch. And then if this guy ever gets fired, he just leaves with like 50 million or something. So
yeah.
Boo-hoo.
Other studios, Crystal Dynamics said this isn't going to affect them in their work on Perfect Dark. Obviously, anything that's like a work for hire thing that they already have.
Microsoft's paying that bill, so they don't have to cut there.
Exactly. None of that stuff's going to be affected. They are also working.
I see a lot of Game Pass deals for Embracer.
Yeah.
I'll take that back.
For real. They, of course, they're working with Amazon on Tomb Raider, right? They have several Lord of the Rings projects cooking, including a massive MMO with Amazon.
Everyone thought Gollum was them, but that was not.
That was Daedalic published that themselves, and that was a deal that pre-existed the acquisition by Embracer of the Lord of the Rings stuff. Yeah, Nacon published it on consoles, I think. But on Steam, it's Daedalic just published it themselves. This is a company that spent a lot of money, and it's really, really massive. And we never knew exactly. I remember trying to get an interview with Lars Wingefors for years and years. Just like, hey, explain this to me. And they're like, nah.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the Oprah thing where everyone gets a car, but then the tax deal comes due and all those people are screwed.
Yes.
Not Oprah, all the other people.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's a weird situation. We will probably be following this story as well because there are a lot of studios. Like I really like Saber Interactive. They did a lot of the work to turn SnowRunner into a very good video game. There's home like the Space Shipbreaker. What is the name of that game? I love that.
Hard Space
Shipbreaker. Yes, I love that game. I want all these studios to just keep working on the stuff they've been working on. But boy, it seems like that is going to be a real roll of the dice, and the odds aren't going to be in all these studios' favor. So
a lot of those things have been on Game Pass. I think that might be one of the things that can help and save them is, well, where we really need money, so you get to make this thing you're making because we'll take this Game Pass deal that covers a lot of its budget. And so that's one of my only hopes with the situation they're in right now.
All right, we're gonna do a little catch up from Summer Game Fest, from our talk with Phil, some headlines that came out of there, just a whole bunch of that stuff real quick over the next few stories. Because there's a lot to talk about. Microsoft will absolutely make money on Starfield, Phil Spencer says. This comes from Eric Fredrickson at GameSpot. How do you take a massive, expensive game like Starfield, which has been in development with hundreds of developers and artists, release it on a subscription service like Game Pass, and then make it profitable? To explain, Phil Spencer looked back into the history of game development while talking on GameSpot's sister site Giant Bomb's At Night show. Spencer used Halo 2 as an example here. Let's say we were going to ship Halo 2, Spencer said, and we're not shipping it on Nintendo, we're not shipping it on Sony. Nobody ever asked me, how does the profit and loss for this game work when you're not seeing it everywhere, selling it everywhere, and you can sell it? With that in mind, Spencer laid out the basic idea. What you did on old school consoles is you said, how many consoles are you going to sell because Halo 2 launches? How long will those players stay on the platform? And how many games will they buy? And does that make it more cost effective to keep the game exclusive to your platform? Now, to speak to this is exactly what I heard when we first started. Remember that conversation nonstop? Will they make Bethesda games exclusive? Will they do this? Will they do this? And I was like, turns out, here's the reporting. Yes, they are. And the reason they're doing it is because they did the math. They looked at every possible scenario. They didn't decide this before, but after they acquired them, they looked at every possible scenario, and it's exactly what he said. The cost of doing business, of making it essentially exclusive to Game Pass, they're going to sell it on Steam as well, but essentially making it exclusive to Game Pass, the benefit of making more people get into Game Pass and more people come onto the Xbox is worth it to them. And it's not such a huge hit from not having that PlayStation money. Everyone would say they can't leave that PlayStation money on the table. Well, it turns out they can when they start looking at the other factors in the boost that they would have. And he says as much here. So it's cool to see that that's still the reasoning. We want to say, when I look at Game Pass, we are absolutely going to make money on Starfield. Touch wood, that's the plan. And we will grow Game Pass, and Xbox will be a better platform, both on PC and console. For us, it's about expanding our platform reach, and we think that important games like Starfield will be catalysts for Game Pass growth on many different platforms. And coming out of that show, boy, I believe it, because Starfield has just got me buzzing like crazy. How about you, Jesse?
It's my dream concept of a game to be just this big, anything, go anywhere. It's like the promise of what No Man's Sky with a much smaller team. So I always tempered those expectations. Or Star Citizen, which is about to be $1 billion put into it and still not exist fully. It's my dream concept of a space RPG, which I always wanted, which, Mass Effect touched towards, but was still very limited by the hardware and the scope and budget, being much more a story action thing. This being like 7 really good looking games in one or more, because I know there's still other stuff they haven't talked about yet. This is my dream game, which I've already had some people say you shouldn't review it. I'm like, well, why not?
Yeah.
I'm only supposed to review things I'm not interested in? I mean, I cannot wait.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Give us 2 months.
Yeah, for real. Give us that game now, please. Actually, I'll start playing now. I don't care if it's still buggy. You know me. I don't care at all.
We'll get into those bugs in a little bit.
Yes. Let's see here. Let's moving on here. Starfield will have the fewest bugs of any Bethesda game, Xbox exec says. This comes from ONS Good at Polygon. Mark this one down. Starfield will have, quote, the fewest bugs of any game from Bethesda, or that Bethesda has ever shipped. That's according to Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios. Longtime players of Bethesda role-playing games recalling past launches in the Fallout and Elder Scrolls series are practically licking their chops at this claim. But he laid it on the bar, speaking to Giant Bomb's Timur Hussein, Jeff Grubb, and Lucy James, with his boss Phil Spencer alongside, no less. Here's Booty's full quote. Working with Todd Howard, Bethesda Game Studios creative director, and the team, I see bug counts, and I'll say that by the numbers, if it shipped today, this would be have the fewest bugs of any game from Bethesda, or that Bethesda has ever shipped with. Right there, I'm ready to believe them, but I still know that this game's going to come out with enough bugs to get like a lot of gifts happening. I think they're probably mostly going to be fine, though. I'm someone who's never really had a problem with this stuff because I've never had the game crashing bugs or the game disrupting bugs of like this door doesn't open.
You didn't play Skyrim on PS3, so you're probably fine.
That's exactly right. Yes, I played on Xbox 360, and then I think I moved it to my PC. I remember doing the save to like move it to my PC and played it there, and I had a great time with it. But they did delay this game for an entire year, basically, almost an entire year.
Yeah, well, from your interview, it sounds like it might have been 2 years.
Yes,
a year and a half or so, because ZeniMax needed money real bad. That's kind of why they didn't sell because they really wanted to. They sold because money was a very nice thing for them.
Right. So this game originally had a release date of much, much earlier than that 11/11/22 that they were going to ship last year, and then they delayed it on top of that. Sounds like this game is getting the lessons learned from stuff like Halo Infinite, right? And
every single person that I know that works at either Bethesda or Microsoft is helping.
Yeah, that's
everyone. There's no one not in the company, it feels like.
Yeah, the way that they I don't know if I have that story here, but they were like, oh, every QA person that we've ever worked with is playing this game. And it's like, man.
Like since December.
And that's the kind of stuff that people say, like, why don't you just do that before the game comes out? Seems like they're doing it. It's like, okay, is that even gonna be enough? Usually probably not for a game like this where everything is interactable and you can put every wheel of cheese onto a spaceship and take it to another planet. But it's still worth trying. They should still try, and it seems like they are. And this is the game that they really have to get right, so they're doing it.
Yeah, that list, and people saying, "Oh, the least buggy." Well, it's the least known. Like they always have their list
known
of
shippables,
things they can get to. So for that list, it's already smaller than they've ever had on a previous title, and they've got 3 more months to get to that day 0 patch to keep making it smaller. It doesn't mean there aren't other bugs they don't find when 20 million people are playing it in the first month, but you can't have 20 million QA people and not have price like billions a month.
And Spencer said, like, truth be told, when the acquisition closed, this game had a significantly earlier ship date than where we're actually launching it. sitting down with Todd and the team and explaining that we want to give this team the time. I think Matt says that we have every QA person in our entire company playing Starfield right now, looking at bug counts, looking at quality where we are. So yeah, just I hope that it pans out for the people that really care about this stuff. Obviously, the game-breaking bugs are the ones that are going to be the biggest issue. And if something causes a bug because there's just a ton of possibility in this game, oh well, at a certain point.
Save early.
Yep.
Save often.
Exactly. All right. A God of War Ragnarok artist has defended Starfield's 30 frames per second frame rate. This comes from Fraser Gilbert at Pure Xbox. In an interview with Giant Bomb, Spencer had the following to say: at some point, not to get all geeky about it, but there's rendered time per frame, and teams can either want to go horizontal or kind of deep on a frame, and it's a creative choice. We obviously have games that are running at 4K 60 on the platform. It's not a platform issue. It's a creative decision. I trust the decisions Bethesda Game Studios makes, and I trust what I'm playing. I don't ever want us to turn playing games into a math exercise. I'm not saying that 60 frames per second or resolution doesn't impact what you play, but I don't think we want to turn that into an Excel thing. I think you want to give the creatives the tools to make the best decisions, and the game will be what it is. I think Starfield's going to be a great game, and I love the reception today, and I don't want to kind of force specs on every game before they start. Interestingly, that, obviously there was a lot of response to this, Jesse, not just to this, but just like to hearing the news that the game was going to be locked 4K 30 on Xbox Series X and 1440p 30 on Xbox Series S. Our friend Dreamcast guy was out there with a tweet that he's since deleted and walked back significantly, saying, "Oh, this is a sign of an unfinished game." In response to that, a senior staff environment artist, Danny Carlone, who worked on God of War Ragnarok, chimed in with some thoughts on social media this week. He said, "Game dev here, big fan by the way, wanted to clarify it's not a sign of an unfinished game, it's a choice. 60 frames per second on this scale would be a large hit to the visual fidelity. My guess is they want to go for a seamless look and less pop-in, and of course you're right to dislike the choice." And that's where I'm at. People are allowed to still criticize a game running at 30 frames per second. Talked to Mike for months and months leading up to this, knowing in my heart this game was definitely going to be 30 frames per second on console. But knowing also that a lot of gamers have gotten very used to 60 frames per second through years and years of literally 3 years solid of almost every game they're playing on either an Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 being 60 frames per second, some of them being 120 frames per second. So having to go back down to 30 is going to hurt some people no matter what. But we know this studio. We know that this is what they do. They make everything interactable, and that's where they want to focus. And the game does look really good. And so the fact that they're committing to it and they're spending their time elsewhere instead of getting up to 60 frames per second isn't surprising. And I think that they're right. I think it's a creative choice, even though there's some technical limitations there as well, right, Jesse?
Yeah, in the IGN interview, I think Todd said it was a fidelity choice, and people took that, oh, he just wants it to look good. And it's like, no, the fidelity of the experience of having everything tracked its location in real, forever throughout your time playing, where you've got a ship and you put a ton of sandwiches on a table. Like, that's all tracked across all these different places. Their global illumination system making the game look the way it does. That type of stuff is really CPU intensive.
Yep.
And these are 3-year-old $500 boxes and $300 boxes for the S that they're already just getting completely destroyed by the next generation. Like, you got a 4090, I've got a 7900 XTX. These things were 2 to 3 times the cost of just their one part, the entire console. Like, if you want to push things, consoles aren't going to keep up. They never will unless we start going to $1,000 consoles, which they're not going to do. So
yeah, and I think that fidelity does speak to exactly like that. People can go wide, or they go horizontal, and then go deep on their stuff. And these games have always been, there is so much happening there's so much potential for stuff to happen in every frame. And I think that this is a game you could get running 60 frames per second if you completely curated the experience. And I think a lot of people want that kind of game. To get 60 frames per second curated for me, and don't let me do certain things. And for me, as someone a big fan of Bethesda Softworks Studio games, no, don't ever curate anything for me. Let me decide how I'm going to go have fun. And if that means we have to be locked at 30 frames per second because I might do something really goddamn stupid, like put every ship that I can find into one box on my home base, then please, no, you have to let me do that. That's way more important. That's the fidelity of the experience that I prefer. So I totally get how we get to this point. And I think people are probably going to have to get used to it. Before we left, I was talking to Turbo Sean, friend of the site. He does a lot of our social stuff now, and he helps me over on Game Mess. He's like, we're going to have to get used to this because things are going to flip. And I'm like, no, developers are still going to want to do 60 frames per second. Gamers are too used to it. And like, then I started thinking about it on this trip, actually seeing the games in front of me. And yeah, many of these games are still 60 frames per second, but we are now at a point where we're no longer playing PS4 and Xbox Series or Xbox X or Xbox One, games that are dressed up for next generation, for the new gen. These are now native new gen experiences. And now that developers have these new consoles to play with, they are going to go a little bit further and push them. And then they're going to realize, okay, we got a little bit big for our britches, and we don't want to cut everything that we did. And we're actually going to settle on 30 frames per second. And that's going to become much more common as we get later into this generation, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if Hellblade 2 is 24 frames per second with their cinematic aspirations.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, but, I do think
Fable they showed Fable in 30. Like they're going to show things off in 30. That's going to be their main mode and what things are built for. And when they can have 60, like with Avowed, which is a smaller scope, it's not a big open world, it's interconnected hub zone type thing. Then you get 60. But the really pushing it hard AAA games are 60 on PC for them, I think.
I think 60 being the standard, which is something that Aaron Greenberg said early on. Standard doesn't mean there's no deviations from the standard, but I think that's probably still going to be true. I think most games probably will be 60 frames per second because the way these games are going to be budgeted and scoped will continue from the last generation, mostly of like, we're going to make one of those games. Those are the things that we know how to do. They sell, they perform well. They are
and you want to get things out in time. Not everything can be the 5 or 7 year budget. And
exactly.
The most important thing I saw Todd talk about was how they worked with id, but not on combat. They worked with id on the graphics and the motion blur, which is why it looks so smooth, where people are like, is this 60? Is this 30? Because it was just so much smoother at times than they're used to with the Bethesda title. And that's because of really good motion blur implementation.
The biggest indication here that you can't just turn down the resolution and get a better frame rate is that the Xbox Series S is running at 1440p, 30 frames per second. The Xbox Series S is one where you're like, you think that they would just be able to turn that down and that's where it would happen. But no, because that's the same CPU. It's clearly not about the resolution. There is other things happening in that engine, likely in terms of simulation, physics, all these other things that are.
It's a Bethesda game.
Yes,
we're going to get mods. Someone's going to unlock it, and then we will see how does this actually run all the time. So.
Yep. And I'll be playing.
How often is it actually hitting 60?
Yeah, the 4090 will be able to hand at 60.
I spent $1,000 on a friggin' GPU for this damn website, so I'm reviewing it. I will have a ton of Xbox footage and talk about Xbox. I get yelled at on other things for that, but I'm playing it on my PC.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't be more excited about Starfield. It is now my most anticipated game by far. All right, Phil Spencer says there's obviously more work for us to do with Japanese games. This comes from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. Besides a few years when Xbox 360 was still young, there's no denying that Xbox hasn't offered as many Japanese titles as Nintendo and Sony. The last few years, this has started to change, though, as more and more Japanese games are being released for Xbox Series X and S. And on Xbox Game Showcase, there was even several major announcements from companies like Atlus, Sega, and Capcom. After the event, Phil Spencer visited a Giant Bomb stream, and this was a topic that came up. Spencer explained there are multiple reasons why Xbox gamers are missing out on Japanese entertainment, that he really likes the progress that has been made, all while acknowledging that there's more work to be done. He said, it's not any one thing. Sometimes it's business deals that are done. Sometimes the team has a focus that they're just, hey, we can only support 2 or 3 platforms, and they're kind of reducing development risk. It is real. Every platform you add adds more work to the development team. Sometimes it's just a team that doesn't have a lot of connection to Xbox, and they don't necessarily see it in their local game stores when they walk in. This is something that Spencer clearly would like to change. As he continued, it's even why our presence on the ground with Xbox, even if we're not selling as many Xbox consoles as the competition, if you go to Yodobashi Camera, I want there to be an Xbox section. I want there to be games that are shown. I also want the teams that are kind of on a base level that Xbox is a games platform, and it's something that they can see in their daily lives. He ended by explaining that things are moving in the right direction, but that the work is far from over. He says, I love the progress that we made over the last 5 to 6 years there, but there's obviously more work for us to do. This is a place where...
Whoever got this interview did a really good job. There's so many great quotes out of it.
I wish I could have had a million more questions, because I'm like, I would have been like, hey, so tell us how the Sega Atlus deal came to be. And was that inspired by, these struggles in Japan? And will you replicate this with any other publishers? Is this something you've pitched to Square Enix? but we ran out of time, of course.
We only had 12 minutes, so you definitely had you got way more time than we.
Yeah,
very jealous.
We got way more time than we actually got. I definitely had hands waving at me from behind the camera.
He stuck around with us for like, it's okay. So the PR person's like, okay, that's it, and then
it was
around for like 15 more minutes because he just loves talking about video games.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like little behind the scenes. It's like getting this conversation to happen in the first place. It was 100% Phil made it happen. Like, we didn't reach out to PR. I reached out to Phil first.
Exact same thing.
And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Here's my scheduling people. And then when we would like hit a snag, I'm like, hey, Phil, it's kind of like, he's like, no, don't worry, it's going to happen. And it's like, we're only getting this much time. It's like, no, I'm just going to stick around as much as I want.
That was the exact same thing. The exact same thing happened with us. And then they got very mad because I was Nick doing that, going to Phil like, hey, Phil, is this interview still going on? And then they're like, hey, come to us first. And it's like, well, you didn't respond for a month.
Yep, it's kind of hard not to feel like at least kind of grateful to him, like giving us our time.
He's so approachable.
Yes, for real.
It's really weird. He's a CEO of a pillar of a $2 trillion world dominating company, and he actually seems normal.
And it was great to meet Matt Booty as well, who's someone who I hadn't really interacted with much before. He was great as well. In terms of Japan, I think that the answer for them continues to be what they did with Sega Atlas at this event, being like, let's just make these deals. And even Capcom, I mentioned this, Phil's like thought it was no big deal. I'm like, getting Path of the Goddess day one from a company like Capcom, sure, it's a new IP, but that's a relatively big deal. That's something I think these companies would have been. Yeah.
They had Monster Hunter Rise as a port day one in January, and they've got Exoprimal coming next month.
Yeah, Exoprimal. Okay, that was
actually the first IP, but it was funny that everyone forgot that because they don't do the Game Pass deals.
Yes, that's right. So, but yeah, I mean, all those things are, I think, moves in the right direction for Game Pass, but also for like the Japanese games coming to Xbox, where it's like it makes sense for a lot of these companies in a major way. At least I think
I loved his annoyance at Square Enix.
Yes,
that was really good.
He says, "I'll have to get back on a plane."
They really want that. They got some Game Pass deals like Dragon Quest Builders, and
it seemed like it worked out for those games really well.
I think they want more. They want buco bucks.
All right, let's do a couple more roundups of stuff coming out of Summer Game Fest. 11 more games confirmed for Xbox Game Pass, including Sea of Stars. This comes from James Carr at GameSpot. Revealed during the Xbox Game Showcase Extended, there are a bunch of new games coming to Xbox Game Pass in the future. Almost a dozen games were confirmed to be joining Xbox game catalog. Here is what I have. The Lamplighters League, Tectonica, Little Kitty Big City, which I think Emma played, and I never got a chance to talk to her about it. Another Crab's Treasure, which I got to play. It's just Sekiro with crabs, and it's awesome. Galactic Care, The Wandering Village, The Bookwalker, Harold Halibut, Neon White, Minico's Night Market, and Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is also that really good-looking sort of Chrono Trigger JRPG-looking thing that is now content complete, they said. Seems like it's coming pretty soon. Looking forward to it.
Funny, because that one they hadn't announced it, and people were like, oh, are you guys going to come to Xbox? It had originally, been in the Kickstarter, and they're like, we're not sure. As Phil had said before, it's kind of hard sometimes to do every platform at launch. It's like why Rogue Legacy still isn't.
Right, but it seems like proactive Xbox, which is kind of the way they have to be. Right, they have to be proactive, because I think if people are making those decisions, if they're triaging their development cycle, I think it's pretty easy for a lot of them to say, we're going to cut off Xbox for now, and we'll get to it later. So that's where Microsoft has to be proactive, and it seems like that's what the deals like these indicate, that Microsoft's spotting good games that are worth their investment, and now these games are coming to Game Pass. So.
I think that was a big part of the GDK giving you a free PC version, because for a smaller dev, that means, hey, I just get it on the Microsoft Store on PC now, and that's an extra thing that I might not have had otherwise.
All right. The extended showcase from Xbox happened yesterday. Here's everything that was revealed at the extended Xbox Game Showcase 2023 from Fraser Gilbert at Pure Xbox. I was traveling, so did you watch this, Jesse?
I did. I co-streamed it. It was very good.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through some of these headlines, and I want you to spot anything that's worth talking about a little bit more. But they gave
the first one.
Yeah, the fresh look at Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty ahead of its September release. People seem very excited about this. I think this is looking pretty good.
This is looking like the actual version of Cyberpunk they wanted to ship before management told them, hey, you got to put this out about 3 years too early.
Yes, so they have a free update alongside the paid expansion of Phantom Liberty. And it sounds like the free update will update a lot of the background stuff and really get things in place, and then a lot of the content will be in Phantom Liberty. I think I'm pretty excited to go back now. It's been long enough for me.
It's worth, if you haven't played it, for people
Yes.
out there, if you haven't played it, do not play it until this update, because this update adds and fixes so much. The game's already been fixed up quite a bit, but like now they'll actually have a cop system and just a lot of the little things that would have been there if they hadn't been forced out the door after a couple years of actual work. And plus, this gives you, I think, what'll end up being a much better choice in endings, because this DLC has to take place before the original endings.
Right, the way it works out.
And feeds into those. If you know, you know the reason why this has to be before all of the endings. So it's definitely worth waiting. This
also led to an interview Jason Schreier did over at Bloomberg with the director of this game, which is a pretty interesting read about how they're like trying to really put a fine point on here's where Cyberpunk actually is. This is the game we always wanted to make. Now it's actually getting there. We want this to be a redemption story. And then the director seemed to indicate after this, going to start working on a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. So
I'm still sad about Cyberpunk Online. I thought that could have been really cool, but I'll take a really good sequel that actually gets time.
Yeah, it seems like the right move. Seems like they did get Cyberpunk to where it needs to be. All right, sticking with the extended showcase, High on Life is getting High on Knife paid DLC, right? Is that what it is? I didn't see this one at all.
So it's like a horror-themed DLC starring Knifey and a new gun, and I bet you it is not. And I think they made it very clear it is not starring Justin Roiland.
I bet it does not either. The Lamplighters League, which is that Indiana Jones-looking tactics game that arrives on Game Pass in October. Obsidian talked more about Avowed, and I think they established some of the scale of that game closer to the Outer Worlds instead of Skyrim,
interconnected hubs, not a big open world, not a Skyrim, but interconnected hubs that you can go and explore at your leisure. The smaller but more dense scope that they excel at. And
it's coming 2024. They confirmed that in the showcase. That's wild that game's already coming. The First Descendant is launching later this year. Crossplay beta in August. I was like traveling, but I had it on. I saw this. This looked interesting.
It's Unreal Engine 5. It's very pretty. It's kind of it's kind of exoprimal-ish, just in the way the feeling looked and shot. And it's just you're a bunch of people going after huge enemies, and there's a lot of butts in it. And so the weebs will be happy.
Towerborn is coming to Game Pass day one. Towerborn is that the Project Belfry game that we talked about either on this show or on Grubb Snacks forever ago. Finally getting that confirmed was really nice. I was really hoping that they would announce the Wu-Tang Clan game, Jesse. Didn't happen, but maybe next time.
Matt said they've got so many more shows coming. You never know.
Yes, and they kind of hinted at, when we talked to them about that, like, we had to pick and choose what we are going to show and tell some teams, and they don't like it, hey, this asset's not good enough, take it back. And you're like, man, what game is he talking about? There's probably a lot of fun stuff there. Fallout 76 Once in a Blue Moon update arrives June 20th. I think I'm going to maybe check that game out again now that I had so much time to cook.
I think a lot of people are still colored by just how bad it was at launch.
And that's fine. There's so many games to play. Solid. If it gave you a bad taste in your mouth, you don't have to go back to everything. It's not that's not on you. That's on the game. It's
kind of impossible to go back to everything. Now there are too many good video games.
Yep. Hi-Fi Rush Arcade Challenge update launches on July 5th. That looked good. Phasmophobia launches on Xbox Series X and S this August. That'll be a fun way to play that. Exoprimal got another gameplay trailer prior to its July's Game Pass release. A montage of IDX at Xbox Developer Acceleration Program titles. Let's see what else they have here. They did the Microsoft Flight Simulator Dune expansion. They talked a little bit more about that. Paris had a whole bit in there that was very good.
It's like they recreated a good section of Arrakis to fly around.
Go Mecha Ball launches on Xbox Game Pass in 2024. That looked like fun. It looked like Marble Madness, but as an action game.
You bounce around like a marble, but then you get up and just shoot the shit out of people.
Yes, it reminded me of Guardian. I can't remember, Guardian Legend, I think, for NES a little bit. Liza P. They had some more stuff about. They had more stuff about Hellblade 2 that looked good. Lightyear Frontier is coming out early 2024. Let's see. Then they had the 10 indie games that we just talked about. And then Phil Spencer played a little bit of 33 Immortals, that 33-player online game, which continues to be the weirdest number in video games.
They explained why, because he asked, like, why did you choose that? And it was from like Dante's Inferno, I think. There's
really?
There's 33 chapters in each. There's 3 books with 33 chapters each, and so they went with 33.
That's fantastic.
It's all about that.
All right, then wrapping up Summer Game Fest. Summer Game Fest will return in 2024 after record-setting year. This comes from Ollie Reynolds at Nintendo Life. Following what's been described as a record-setting 2023, Jeff Keighley and Summer Game Fest have announced that the event will return in 2024. And was there ever any doubt? Much like this year, a live showcase will kick off the summer celebrations once again, followed by the media creator-focused play days from I Am 8-Bit, which I Am 8-Bit did a really good job. It was a very pleasant experience to be there, everybody. More details will be revealed in the coming months, presumably with information on the precise dates and some of the publishers we can expect to see at the event. With rumors percolating of a Switch successor in 2024, perhaps this is the time for Nintendo to embrace live events again. How about it, Nintendo? Ollie, I think probably not. We'll see. Maybe, though. Otherwise, it's likely Keighley will bring out another actor to promote an upcoming game or update. And I think that's much more likely. That's almost a certainty.
That should be the center of the Summer Game Fest bingo card, just the free one.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. Of course. Celebrity promoting something. Jesse, you guys going to go next time?
That's the hope.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll actually have a budget, so hopefully people keep signing up for our Patreon. I did apply this year, and I think we would have gotten in, except for the fact that we didn't have a budget for actually flying, and we weren't big enough to be flown out yet. But yes, that's definitely the plan, applying, trying to get to everything. We would have been in at like Xbox's thing and all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely want to be there next year. We'll be at John Sick Mechanical will be at Gamescom. If anyone's going there.
Okay, fun. We're looking at Gamescom. We're like looking at a bunch of stuff now.
It's very far away, but I've heard it's very fun.
Yeah, I've never been. Everyone I talked to who's been seems to have had a good time.
Bring a clothespin for your nose is all I've been told.
Yes, exactly. All right, last couple of stories. Lego 2K Goal has been rated in South Korea. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. A rating for a Lego 2K football game has been spotted in South Korea. As reported by Gamatsu, the Game Rating and Administration Committee of Korea has given an all-ages rating to the game, titled Lego 2K Go with like 3 O's, and also notes that the applicant was Take-Two Interactive. Given the game's title, Lego 2K Go is almost certainly a Lego football game published by 2K. This would finally confirm VGC's exclusive report from February 2022, in which we revealed that Lego was partnering with 2K for a new line of Lego sports games. At the time, people with knowledge of 2K's plans told us that the publisher had signed a new multi-game partnership with Lego, which was intended to start with a football game developed by Sumo Digital, and would then be followed by an open-world Lego racing game developed by Visual Concepts. Ultimately, the racing game, which was later revealed to be Lego 2K Drive, was released first. Yeah, this sounds about right. If you're going to try to make a games that appeal to a wide global audience of children, Lego and soccer is a pretty good fit. I think I'll check this out. I like arcadey soccer games a lot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed 2K Drive. It's a 2K game from Visual Concepts, so it has mind-numbingly bad microtransactions if you want. But the actual game itself was really good. I'm sure they'll do their best to do a good one here because 2K Drive was great, and this is a very good concept to continue that initiative.
And then finally, for reasons no one could fathom, McDonald's has released a new Game Boy Color game. This is from Andrew Cunningham at Ars Technica. Infinite monkeys working at infinite typewriters would have trouble coming up with the sentence I'm about to write. Fast food giant McDonald's has released a new retro-style game featuring Grimace, the purple milkshake blob. While it's clearly meant to be played in a browser or on a phone or a computer, it's also a fully working Game Boy Color game that you can download and play on the original hardware. You can play this on an actual Game Boy Color. I'm gonna check this out. Actually, that's the plan. I'm gonna get my analog pocket out and play it on there. That'll be a lot of fun. I think this is great. I think this is a cool thing. The company's obviously trying to have like that nostalgic play. Yeah, sure. I'll get a Grimace milkshake and play this game. Let's go. All right. We're going to wrap up, everybody. I don't have a poll because we were out for so long that the last one we did was like, what's your expectation level for Xbox? And most people said like 3 or 4. But we'll come up with a new one. What should the new one be? While I'm doing that, Jesse, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
You can find us at xboxera.com. You've got our links on everything at the top of that page. We got a Patreon because we are fully fan funded. We have no corporate money behind us, despite our NFT cyber suite. We're actually still pretty broke. But yeah, xboxera.com. I stream on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/xboxera. Just xboxera.com. It'll get you everything you need.
All right. I came up with a general one. Was Summer Game Fest as a whole a success? Actually, let's see. Yeah. Oh, you know what, Hammond? I like yours. do a Starfield 30 frames per second poll. Do you care, yes or no, or PC player? Let's do that one. All right. Do you care that Starfield is 30 frames per second? There we go. And I will have Jan throw that up on youtube.com/giantbomb/community. You can vote there. And we will answer that on tomorrow's show, which I'm looking forward to. That'll be back with you at the same time. Until then, what do we have happen on Giant Bomb? I don't know. We are all still kind of scattered and strewn about.
Recovering.
We are recovering. We'll probably have a few things happening. I think we're going to skip voicemail dump truck this week. No, not guaranteed, but I think we probably will. On Friday, we are going to do a kind of real super casual hang for UPF, where I think we're going to have everybody who can make it, which won't be everybody, bring trailers that were really fun that we missed for Summer Games Fest, and we'll just sit down and react to them and see the games that we might not have talked about previously, because there's a lot of stuff I feel like I missed from the PC game show and things like that. So if you guys want to bring a whole bunch from chat, have your trailers ready, and we'll play them as much as we can. Anyhow, it should be fun. And that'll be a good way to catch up.
Things are better than a chill react stream when you're feeling real tired.
Exactly right. That can just like sit back and not have to talk a ton. So it'll be good. But other than that, everybody, thank you for watching. Jesse, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games.
Of course. Thank you for having me once again.
You all really are the best audience in gaming. It meant a lot what everyone has said over this past week. It was a lot of fun to do it because you guys are all so cool. So we're going to keep at it over here on Giant Bomb. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. And goodbye. I'm going to hit the button to fade to black now. I didn't do it until right now. Bye. All right. Still live, still hot mic'd. What do I do now? I'm going to raid somebody, I think. What day is it? It's Wednesday?
I don't do the Twitch anymore. Can't be me.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I thought that company wasn't the best to stream for, and I've been proven right.
Yeah. Yes, you have. The visibility and discoverability on YouTube, I always thought was better. And then I would talk to people like, it's just because there's not as many people on YouTube. I'm like, it doesn't seem like that's what it is. And it's like, just fundamentally, it's better at it. And now, of course, Twitch is just making itself worse.
In YouTube, you don't lose your stuff. Like, I get the 50-50 split on YouTube because they have ridiculous costs on their storage, and you can go 1440p. You can, so like on YouTube, you can go 1080p, 9K bitrate. It looks great. Yeah. You can go 1440p, 18K bitrate. It looks incredible. And that's what I do. You can go 4K, 48K bitrate. They just let you do it. And yet Twitch is still, 1086, 6K bitrate, and it looks like dog shit.
And it's like they own the servers. It's Amazon servers. I get it's still money. I get it still has its costs. But all right, we're rating AEW, everybody. AEW games. We're going to let them have a little fun. All right. We would have been doing stuff like Blight Club and stuff. I don't know. It's going to be hard to pull some of those things off. And really, I'm kind of maybe okay with pushing off Blight Club because I really do not know what they are going to give me, and I'm afraid. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know as we know more about our schedule as we start getting back home and everything. But gonna hit the raid button now. See you all next time.
Bye.